All right, let's check it out. So we had whatever tournament that was we had last week. I did the qualifying. I ran through and did an actual opening round, but I didn't make the tournament. I epic failed towards the end, and I had a bunch of work stuff that went on during the deal, and lost my concentration. I actually had it going pretty good until the last two holes, and I dropped it all. Let's check it out. Let's go in. Let's take care of some business, and then we'll look. They got a new 9-hole cup announced, so we'll do a walkthrough. I think it's the City Park. I am not working on either one of those epics, so I will dump it onto my razor. So let's go check it out. The Palm Tree Open. So it's the City Park 9-hole cup, I believe, is what we got going on here. So let's go check out City Park. Let's check out these holes. I will tell you that here, maybe a year or so ago, my teammate Kyle figured out some stuff on these City Park holes. I'm not sure what tournament we played in, but it was like in the last year. Maybe just a little over a year ago. Like March, April, we played these holes, and my teammate Kyle figured these 3 par 3s out, and we were hammering them. So I've come at this hole from just about every angle that you can possibly come at. You can come at it from down below, but I usually like to start off on the green. And where I'm working at right now, there's a shot that you can do from down low where you bring it around. You can start up here. This rolls down, and there's a little trough. And there's kind of a flat area right here. And then there's another little ridge, and it rolls down into this bowl. And it's going this way on this side. So you can try and get into the flat area right here and try and bring it around. You can try and start a little bit lower and bring it around. There is another shot that you can do here too with max backspin, where you can come here with a really big backspin club, and you can start off more in this area. And usually, like if you think of this cut of the green right here, I'm usually, there's a spot, and it takes me a couple of shots every time I play this hole. I have to re-familiarize myself. Somewhere up here in the corner, like one cut back. And you're doing max backspin, max right-hand side spin, so that the ball stops and goes up the hill and then rolls straight down. If you put on left-hand side spin, when the ball hits, it'll flow because it's already, everything's moving to the left. And so it'll really rip off to the left. But the last few times that we've played it, we've started off right down here in the bottom. And it's been somewhere between, I think it was like at mid club with like a 15% adjustment. It was something along those lines. Low power ball. I'll have to go back and go through some of my video and make a playlist. I haven't done that yet. I'm shooting this first and find the spot. But there's a lot of different ways that you can go at it. But I think that of all the ways that I've gone at it, this way right here has netted me the most hole-in-ones. I have made a lot of hole-in-ones on that backspin, but I did that shot for a long time, and I haven't been shooting from down here for that long, and I've probably made just about as many hole-in-ones. So definitely a good spot. We'll work on this hole as the week goes on. We'll see how it goes. All right. So this to me on this hole. Let's talk about some ranges first. So if you're in this sand and you have a Spitfire, you can get on. Now, if you've got a big headwind, it might be a little problematic, but you can get on if you have a Spitfire. But if you're in this sand and you don't have a Spitfire, you better hope that you have a monster ball. And you really don't have to bring a monster ball on this hole. You can play it with a 3-power ball and end up in the perfect zones. So you really, if you're playing this shot and you have a Spitfire in your bag, then you want to use it. You want to use your Nirvana. Now you can end up in the rough out here, and then it's not really going to matter. But the typical fail point is right here on this. And I would say this sand trap, I see more people fail in that sand trap than the other one, and getting caught up in the rough. So my goal is to try and get somewhere along this line. And I don't mind being in the middle here, but the problem with this fairway is it's hilly. It runs like this. across this fairway. So here's a high spot, and here's a low spot, and then here's a high spot, and then it does this, or here's a high spot and here's a low spot. And so it's undulating. And so when your ball comes down through there, if you catch it on this slide, your ball will hit right here, and it'll slide down the field, and instead of taking a bounce and going forward, it'll start this slide thing, and it'll just whip across the fairway. We all know what that looks like, and that's exactly how that happens. When they came out with these holes, this is when this effect really started to show itself in the game. So what I found when I tried to just hit into the middle right here is that there are sometimes that I end up exactly where I'm aiming, and there are sometimes where the ball takes this irregular bounce and slides across the course of no fault of my own, and I end up in the sand. So what I do is I just go for the gap, and I'm trying to get like right out here in front, and I believe that it's mid club. I'll have to go back and look at some. I'll have to go back, and this is why it's. What I should do is stop and pause the video right here and go back and put my playlist together so that I have some numbers. But I'm just trying to think intuitively on how to play the holes before we get there, like what are our options. So here's how I play this hole. And you can set this up with whatever QB you have in your bag. It's going to be either a QB or a rock. And if you've got an upper developed apocalypse, you can use an APOC. And with the APOC, you can probably get yourself further out here. But more often than not, I see people that hit for that get way out here end up in the rough. And it's better just to get out there. There is a spot that you can get out there that you're in your long iron range. Because you're at, I think I'm actually at minimum sniper. So any of those clubs will work. And what is the common thread here with all three of those clubs? It's curl. Okay, so we want a club that's got a lot of curl so that we can come through that gap, because if you look at where the tee box is at, here's the tee box, and this is where we want to end up. So if we draw a straight line through that, we're going to have to start that ball off in order to get it in the right trajectory so that it's going as deep as it can go, and it's coming through the gap. And we want that ball to be on this type of trajectory. So I do know that on the drive here, I always do a plus 10%. And what I'm looking for with my rock, and I'll have to take this shot one or two times to find the right spot. If I remember correctly, it's somewhere like 4 rings off of this spot right there. So that spot, if I draw, hold on one second. All right, where was I? There was a cat outside. My dogs are barking at him. Or her. All right, let's get my brush out here. So I pick a spot from where I'm starting off right here on my tee box, going to this point, right where the rough intersects with the fairway. And I'm going out like 3 with my rock because it has more curl. If you don't have an upper developed rock, if you don't have a maxed out rock, your curl is very similar to a QB. And your QB is probably a better overall club. But distance wise, if you're using a QB, you're going to find yourself in the front a lot with a 3 power ball. And I'm trying to cover that gap starting off in about this area right here with a plus 10, and I'm using curl to get me around, to straighten me out, to try and pick up that line like this. And it's a pure setup shot. So the drive is like your whole thing is the drive is a delivery system to get you out there. What I see a lot of people do on this hole is they try and take this straight shot where they're going from here and they're trying to make this a straight shot. And your extra mile is going to interact right up in here, and so this terrain goes, you know, it's got the little peanut and everything's moving in a downward direction. So if you hit on that hill face, the ball tends to hit on the hill face and then make a big bounce up, and you lose a lot of distance going forward. And you'll end up clipping the rough a lot. When you epic fail here, you'll clip the rough on the other side. Worst case scenario, you end up in the sand, but you're screwed. Even if you end up in the rough out here, you're in big trouble. If you're going to end up in the rough, you really want to end up in the rough in the front. Rough or the sand in the front with a Nirvana and a Spitfire, you got it made. But I see a lot of people do this straight up shot. But if you've got a QB in your bag, you can take this same exact shot and off of this. And it looks really weird when you're setting it up because you're aiming out to this spot and finding where you intersect with that transitional point. And then coming off X amount of rings. No OP. You can set it up if you want to do a max overpower shot. If you're going to set that up, I would either do a max overpower or no overpower. But if you tried max overpower, you could get way in the hell up there. But you can get right up into this gap, and you've got a straight up shot to the cup. And I know that there was an adjustment that we were doing on here, and we're uphill. So really we should be taking some wind off. But I know that there was an adjustment here, and it seemed like it was like -10. And you got an awesome shot from this point to get up there. Very nice shot. Hole number 3, this par 5. All right, this par 5 right here is all really about it. Okay, so it all boils down to like ball. And so it all really boils down to ball. So if you have the ball, and what are those ones? The let's see if I can get in here. I can't even remember what the hell the name of those balls are. The snow globe. So if you've got a snow globe, this is a whole, like, especially if you've got tailwind. If you've got headwind, you want a ball that's got lots of and I don't know that you could even make it over there, even if you had the right ball, even if you had a 5 power, 5 wind. You don't really need curl. So if it had no side spin, if it was 5 power, 5 wind, I don't know that you could get over to the other side. And so the whole goal here is that you have 2 commitments. Commitment number 1, let's pan back so that we can try and get more of you can see where the tee box is. Try and get all of the fairway in here. So you're either going to hit here as 1, you're going to hit up to here so that you can get yourself into your short iron range. And you're going to go for the Albie at short iron range. That's commitment number 1. Or commitment number 2 is that you hit out here. You hit for this spot. If you can get to that spot, you've got a big dog Guardian. I will tell you, it's a tough shot. It's a tough second shot. And you got to practice it a few times. Because it's either with the Guardian, if you can get far, and you have no idea where you're going to end up out here. So if you can roll far enough forward, your Guardian is definitely a better shot. But if you end up just barely getting over, then you're going to wish you had your big dog, because you're going to wish you had a little bit more topspin. But it's really difficult to get up on the green and stick on the green and not go flying over it. And it's kind of difficult to get there because of the sand trap. So you have to start off over on the left-hand side and then bring it around to the right. And it does have a backboard here. So you can try and get that S if you can catch the backboard, but it's really a dangerous shot. So your choices are hit up to the top, go for number 2, go for the short iron, or try and get over. You're not going to get over unless you bring out a big ball. I mean, with a power 3 ball, and there is a max overpower hook shot that you can do here, and with a power 3 ball, a Titan with really good wind, I have tried on numerous occasions. Now, with an Extra Mile 9, I've tried more with an Extra Mile 8 and 7 and 6, doing the max overpower, and it seemed like you were like a full ring set. Like you came over here, it's like 3 or 4 rings off of this, out into in this direction, and doing a reverse max overpower. So it's max overpower to the right, because you're going to get this kind of movement, and then it's as much left-hand side spin as you can get. So side spin doesn't interact with the ball until it touches the ground. So as soon as it touches the ground out here on its first bounce, it immediately starts whipping to the left. You're trying to stop as much of that right-hand curl at this point and trying to straighten the ball out. More side spin would help you. You might be able to catch it if you got the right wind. and you can get over there with the max overpower. I will tell you that I would rather, personally, I would rather take the shot. I would rather always go for this shot, because the typical fail point is the rough. And from the rough down here with a Nirvana, you can actually start off well in front of this rough trap. And you've got a nice run up there with your Nirvana. It's not a bad shot. But from up here, you've got a big dog. You want to bring out a big club if you're going to land up here, because you really want to try and get in front of that so that you can run up that chute. And I like the rough shot better. And I've taken it. I almost always go for the lower shot. But if you can get over to the other side, you can actually put yourself to be on into, and you're putting for Albie. And I don't know about you, but I would always rather have putting for Albie versus having to use my short iron. But if you fail on the drive going down to here, and you end up in the rough or you end up in the sand, you can recover from these two spots. Now with your sand wedge, if you've got a Spitfire, you're going to have to start on this side, and you'll have to bounce over, and you'll end up higher up. So you're basically just recovering to get up. You're going to be in your long iron when you take your last shot. If you end up in the rough, it's a little bit easier to get forward, and you're ending up almost in the same spot you'd end up in if you were up in here. All right, that's enough of that hole. There's a lot of different ways that you can play this hole, though. And when this hole first came out, really the way to play this hole was up here to the top, and then you were just going for it. But we didn't have access to a lot of Power 5 balls. And the Power 5 balls have definitely changed the deal. I think these holes came out. These holes originally were like this, the winter. They were the very first Christmas Links tournament. And they were in Tour 9. All right, hole number 4. This is the same type of hole. There is a rough bump, and I had switched to the rough bump. And the rough bump, you're really kind of following it around, and you need to be like, here's the cup, here's the flagpole. When your tail comes around, instead of going right at the cup, it seemed like we needed to be like right at the top of the cup. We needed to be high, but not too high. And there was a wind adjustment here, and I can't remember what it was. So that'll be something to work on, but I'm going to work on this rough bump. The cool thing about this rough bump is that the rough's pretty wide right there. So instead of hitting down here where it's a little narrower, you're hitting up here in a wider spot. And so you got a little bit more maneuverability. You could still epic fail, but you've got a lot more maneuver before you get over to the sand where you set that ball up. You can also go for it. And I've done this shot a lot. You can go for it on this hole. It has a pretty good sized backboard. So you can come up here with some backspin, and you can try and backspin it to the cup. Here's the risk on this hole. The risk on this hole is it shows this how dark this is going down the hill. There's another little one right here. And everything's going down the hill, and it's really easy to overshoot this hole and end up down here. And the putt going back is the same as the trajectory here. It's one of those putts where instead of being able to go straight to the cup and the flag, you got to start off to the side. And it's kind of a blind shot where you have to take that shot, but you can't see where you're coming out on the other side. So you don't know if you're pointing to the edge of the cup or this edge, or if you're right dead center. You don't know exactly where you're at in the cup. I have actually missed a putt. I've missed putts on this one in particular in a tournament. And so it does suck when you get down, especially when you're really going for hole-in-one and you end up overshooting it. That's why you want to set it, I think, just a little high of the cup. I'll have to go back and look. I'll have to go back and watch some video. I'll set up a playlist for all these. This is another big par 4 that I've had mixed success on this hole. I've had a lot of success on this hole, but it hasn't always come when I really wanted it. Like, this has been a hole that's won me tournaments because I was on that week. I hit it both times. And then I've had tournaments where, like this hole, I couldn't sink it to save my ass. I believe the last time we were here, I've changed around with balls on this hole. So I started off with a Kingmaker. I think I'm now at a Katana. But you really want anything that's got in that curl line. So you could go, your next one would be a Quasar. Or you could have some low wind ball. This is not a bad hole to bring a low wind ball where you're looking at like maybe a 2-power low wind with the 3 side spin. I think I had that Pinata ball. And I think that might fit the bill, actually. But something in that neighborhood, I do believe I was hitting it with a Katana. There are several ways that you can attack this hole depending on which tee box you're playing from. But if you're playing from the rookie tees, really the shot is to try and use this pad. And you're coming through on this trajectory. Now, for years and years, if you're over here, if we zoom in on that section, if you're over along this fairway right here, so you've hit far out, and you're trying to get to the pin, which is right here, and we draw that line, when you're engaging up here, you're a lot closer to the pin. So you would probably need a club that has a little bit more backspin, because you're not giving yourself a lot of fairway to work with or green to work with. Now you could pull off to the left a little bit and catch a little bit more green and then bring it back around to the cup with right hand curl. Or it might actually open up a rough bump right here. And I tried that rough bump, and I'll tell you, it is a rough bump. It is rough. I mean, it's one of those ones where you're hitting here and the pin's right here and it's doing a bunch of weird stuff, and like if you don't hit it right, like if you hit it right, it goes in that direction. But if you don't hit it right and it hits on either side of that, it can do like really bad, like it really went or it really didn't go. And so you can end up with some varying results. So I just went for the try and get on. But there is a spot when you're out there in this zone that if you're using a Kingfisher, and for whatever reason, like my Hornet, when my Hornet was maxed out at level 8 before they came out with the level 9s, I always played it, and I know, you can look at your numbers and you'll go, what? You played what? I played 1-1, 1-9, 2-2. So if I was in mid club, I played at 1.9 per rank. If I was in minimum club, I played at 2.2. And I played it like that for years, and I was super successful with my Hornet. If I could get into my Hornet range, I was super successful. I won a lot of tournaments because I was really good with my Hornet. And when I maxed it out, and now it's 100%, the numbers should have, and the numbers don't work anymore. And so it's not the same club that it used to be, but my Kingfisher has the same numbers that my old Hornet used to have, and it's super accurate. It's one of those clubs that when you first start playing, you look at it and it's like you look at some of the upper developed clubs and you look at the numbers that are on there. The deal is that there's really only a few things that you need in a short iron, and a Kingfisher, right pretty close to the beginning of the game, is a club that you get that has all of that stuff. But for whatever here, on this thing, my Hornet hits a little bit longer. And so I always hit out to this area right here, somewhere in this zone. Because from this zone to the pin, you got this. So you have as much of the green as you want, so that you can set that shot up where you can use just a little teeny bit of backspin, like one backspin. I always like it when you can use 1, maybe 2 backspin, because if you're backspinning it, you have control over the ball. Like that's where the ball should go. Like when you run topspin though, like topspin as it gets towards the end is all dependent on the terrain. So if it's hitting a downhill, it'll roll farther. But backspin, you have a little bit more control. But I do like this spot out here with the Kingfisher, so I'm going to continue to go for the far out spot. And you can do that with a QB, a rock, or you can use your extra mile. And if you've got lower developed stuff, your extra mile is probably going to be the club, because you don't need to get all the way to the front of this, but you don't want to be at the very back. And the problem with the back is, especially if you've got lower developed stuff in your back here, you need more topspin in order to clear, and you're not going to have that either. So you'll have to bring out a bigger club so you're further in the hole. And the deal is that the way that your trajectory is going, This is one of those, it's a blind curl shot. Here's where you're at, and that's where you're trying to get somewhere in that zone. And so I always start a little bit more to the left down in this pocket. So my shot's actually going a little bit more like this. And that gives me a little bit of room for the curl to develop. And then I'll put a little bit of right hand curl on it, trying to get it to go in this direction. And so I'm a little bit further back than if I rode that line, but I'm trying to hedge my bets there. If I hit a great to the left, I should be off the tip, maybe close to that rough. If I hit a great to the right, I'm just a little bit further back. Try and get that tree completely out of play. I want to be past the tree before I interact with the space that the tree's in. This hole you can get, this is definitely a hole that you can get eagle on. There's the other way that you can play it is that you can play from this hollow right here, especially if you're playing from the pro tees. You can play from this little, there's a flat spot right here, and you can ride your extra mile along that flat spot, and you can just bounce it out into the clear. So you can still get into the same area. You're just going to be a little bit further back, almost exactly where I'm at by doing the curl, kind of in that same little zone. I've seen, and an expert I've seen, and I remember practicing it a few times, but I didn't have the ball inventory to really go out there and get it worked out. But I've seen a max overpower hook shot on this where somebody was on and won, and they started off somewhere out in this zone. I think they were trying to get over to here in their first bounce, or somewhere right in this neighborhood, and ended up coming in one bounce. And I can't remember where they got, but they were on the low end up here. It's possible. It's very possible. Hole number 6. Hole number 6. All right. So I know that on the drive on this hole that I do at 10%. And I the last time I played this hole in a tournament, and this is a hole that I've played this hole in the past and had mixed success on it. But about a year and a half ago, we had this hole in a tournament, and I switched the way that I play so that I'm coming into this. I do a plus 10% on the drive. I'm coming in here with the power 3 ball, Kingmaker. I've got one bounce here, 2 bounces, 3 bounces. I'm in the rough, and then I'm bleeding out. And I know that this rough shot from here, if you end up getting caught in the rough at the top, it could be rough, because you're going to have to bounce from here and just try and get yourself up on the side over here so you have a chip to get up and recover. But if you're in the rough down here, you can actually go for it. You still have a shot at Albie. It's not a very good one, but you still have a shot at Albie. But the last tournament that I played this in, I epic failed. I'm going to really count it. I epic failed. I've been kicking its ass all week, and then I epic failed it. So you just bring an extra mile. You can bring your Apocalypse. Extra mile works a little bit better in this situation because it's got better ball guide. So you really want to be able to see where that third bounce is hitting, and this 10% adjustment was really important. So, and this may change because this was more of when we had static wind. So like this was just a general adjustment. But if we've got like a headwind, we may have to adjust this more, or depending on where our red line is, we may have to bring out a power 4 ball so that we can pull back from the red line enough to be able to just to fully adjust the wind out. But from this spot, you have a killer shot at Albie with a sniper. And there, I believe the most successful I ever had on this hole, I didn't use any adjustment. But that's not to say that there isn't one. Now, here's another way that you can play this hole. There's a bunch of different ways you can play this hole. Another way is that you can start off on the top up here. This is like this freaking ski ramp from some Norwegian city. I mean, huge. And you can bounce over to this fairway and try and get into this area so that you can bring a big dog and go straight up. And it's more of the bounce out here in the front, get up on the side. You're coming at it from the side. So you don't really have a great Albie shot, but you do have an Albie shot. You can if you get up there far enough in the right spot. And it's almost more important. You want to try and get into this gap, but the way that it's terrain down here, everything's rolling down like this. And so it's really hard to get into this gap and get far enough up there. And it's very easy to get caught in the rough. If you get caught in the rough and you're doing the low shot down there, you're sunk. Now, if you go straight forward, you do have a shot. I explored a shot one time where I was just hitting to the top of this pad. And then for my second shot, instead of trying to come at it from the bottom where I involved that sand, I could start up here at the top and try and run it up to the cup. And that was a lot more difficult than I thought. It was a difficult shot. You needed a really big club and a really big ball. The best way to go here is just to go down to the bottom and just try and get into that spot. And you can just pound it down there, and if it doesn't work and you end up in the rough out here, you can easily recover. Hole number 7. All right, this is another one of those holes. This is one of those holes that I've been actually playing it pretty much the same way I've played it since this hole came out. You do a bounce over from right here with a QB or a rock. You want to bring a 100% accurate club so you don't involve this sand. You end up in the sand right here and you're sunk. And it's pretty easy to end up in the fairway somewhere out into this quadrant, just from starting off here with a low power ball. But if you bring a bigger power ball, you can easily end up here in the front, and you've got a great second shot coming in. You've got a second shot with a sniper where you can start the sniper off up in this area right here and try and bring it like straight up to the cup. Or you can do the bounce over. I'm not sure what it would look like if you brought your sniper on the other side. I don't think it has enough backspin. What a lot of people are doing here is they're bringing out a bigger ball and they're going for this shot. Because if you fail up here in the front in this rough, you can still recover. But if you get back in this area and you start screwing up, you're in big trouble. So if they bring out a big enough ball, I think that they can start up high. They can use this upper fairway to try and get their first bounce, so that they're moving in a forward direction, trying to get over to this fairway, so that they have a long iron to get in. And I'm going to explore that shot because I've always played it just like, and I've had tournaments. This is another one of those holes where I've had some tournaments that I've done really well in, and this was the hole, because this isn't a hole that you can count on getting an eagle, but it is a hole that is eagleable. Hole number 8. Hole number 8. Maybe hole number 8. All right. Okay, so we have a bunch of shots here too. So there is a shot that you can do from over here, where you're engaging the green and you're trying to bounce it up and you're trying to do a little deal. You can shoot, there's a flat spot up here at the top, and what I like about this flat spot is the flat spot, you're coming in at it like this, and you're engaging the green in this area, and you're trying to run it straight up to the cup, because there's a ring. This is where the hill ends, and so everything here is running steeply downhill. But it's kind of flat, so if you come at it from this direction, you can run the ball straight at the cup. And I've had some success with that, but I'll tell you, if the wind's blowing the wrong way and you get the wind adjustment wrong down here in this area, you can very easily find yourself in the sand. Very easily. And you can also take a shot, and there's several different varieties of this shot from over here on this side, on how you want to play it. And so what I like to do, I like to come over here. What I'm going to do in this tournament, and I've played, I don't really like this down low shot, but I played this upper shot quite a bit, and I played this shot quite a bit. I'm gonna play this shot right here for this tournament. So what I'm gonna do is, I think it's a grizzly. It's a maximum max backspin, maximum right hand side spin. I'll have to look to see which ball I was using. I may have been using a katana or something of that nature so that it had more side spin, so I could get it all. and bringing it back up so that it starts off in this spot right here, and it's coming in. It's basically doing this shot where it's coming back up the hill and then going straight down to it, and you can ride it right to the spot. So it's all about hitting perfect. But if I remember correctly, I'm doing a 1-for-1. So I'm actually acting like I don't really know where it's at in my club. I'm doing 1 per ring. And I'll have to go back and find the last couple tournaments that I played this in. The last tournament I played this in, because this is how I play it in one-on-one. The last tournament I played this in, I came here and I was actually trying to hit from up here. And I wasn't having any success. And so the last hole that we got to, it was critical. I needed to pick one hole up, and I came to this hole and I was like, screw it. And I played this shot right here. But I did like a 40% or a 50% wind adjustment, which is what I normally play in one-on-one. I'll have to remember what I played when I was playing these holes on a regular basis, but I played this type of wind adjustment and bam, in the hole. Hole in one. And nobody will be able to, once I see that video, I won't be able to be talked out of this. Like, I know that shot works. I know that it may not even make sense, but it works. And the wind, if the wind we're getting headwind versus tailwind, that'll change that number. All right. I like our chances on that hole. These are those types of par threes that you got to like your chances on all of them. They're tough. All right, this is a tough ass hole right here. This is another one of those holes that's just like one of the other par fives or this big par four that was right here. Is it number 2? This shot right here, it's a setup shot. So we're doing the same thing here. We're doing a blind curl shot. We need to know what I'm looking for with my rock is where I'd really like to end up is if I want to be somewhere in a forward direction on that. If I'm in that zone right there, I can interact with, I may be able to, if I can get far enough in that zone with I think I was bringing a Kingmaker here, but you can play this easily with a Katana. And I think I was using a Kingmaker because I was actually trying to do a rough bump. And so if you can get into this front quadrant, you can do a rough bump if you've got a 3-power ball and a sniper. If you were a little bit farther back in the zone, you may not be able to do the rough bump, but you can be in the front of this where you have plenty of maneuverability. And so it's just about getting around that corner. So when I had lower developed clubs, I would come here with my QB because it had more curl than anything else. It was the most accurate. And with a Kingmaker or a Titan, and you'll have to set it up because with a Titan doesn't have as much side spin. So you'll have to be inside a little bit. You have to be a little bit more to the right. I'd take my QB off of this transitional point and I'd move it out like 3 rings. And I would do a max topspin, max curl. And I if I remember correctly here, we do not have to use very much topspin. Like we need to do like very little. I'm not even sure that it's not like a little bit of backspin. I do believe it is a little teeny bit of topspin, but it ain't much. So doing like 1-2 topspin. If you've got lower developed stuff, put it all on there and see where you end up the first time. Because you don't really care where you end up down here at this point. What you're looking for is to make sure that you can get the right trajectory. Once you establish your trajectory, then you can work your distance out in one turn. You'll automatically know. So if you start off 3 rings off of this transitional point, and I think with my rock I have to start off like 4 rings off of that transitional point because it has so much curl. And then you do a max curl shot and you're trying to get it so that by the time it's engaging the course, it's on that same plane trajectory as the fairway. So that you can run right down the middle to get out there. It's real tricky. I've had a lot of success on this hole. When you take the shot, and the last few times we've played this in a tournament, I've been getting like super freaking greedy. Like I've been wanting to get all the way down to the tip so that I can go for that rough bump. If you fail down here, and I failed down here and ended up in the rough way down here at the end, you can't recover with Nirvana. I suppose if you were in this sand, you could recover with a Spitfire, but if you're in any of the rest of this crap that's back in this direction, you're in big trouble. You can try, if you can reach it, if you can get anywhere into this fairway, you could try a max overpower hook shot. You have nothing to lose. And you could try a max overpower hook shot to see if you could catch it to get you in that direction so that you could get at least a recovery shot. Yeah, this is a great hole right here. Now, I have seen some people, and I would imagine from the Masters tees, they probably have to use this spot right here, and they're coming at it more from this direction. They're bouncing it over from like here, trying to get it over, maybe doing a second bounce rough bump. I'm not sure from the third tees. Well, they may be able to get that arc correct in order to get down into this spot so their second shot's the same. But it's a tough deal from up here. You got to be really prepared by bringing the right clubs. You're not going to get this done. If from way down into this zone you've got a great sniper shot, you're farther away on the arc. When you do your arc, you're outside of that zone. So up here you're going to be using a club that's got more distance than a sniper, and at that point you're going to be sacrificing ball guide and some other stuff. So you've got a much tougher shot from that angle to get up to the cup. If you got upper developed stuff and you bring out the right ball, it's probably not that big of a deal. This hole right here can eat your lunch though. This hole right here can ruin your entire round. And it could also make your entire round if you get an Albie on this hole. We played this tournament, these holes in a tournament, and I parred two of the par threes. I missed putts. Was on and won and missed the putt. And I came back and won that tournament, and I got on some of these holes, and it was like hole number 9, got an Albie, and I picked up some holes that I don't normally pick up, and was able to, you never recover, but I was able to get them back up. All right, that is the City Park holes. That's at least a look at them. I'll have to go back. I'll put together a playlist. I'll set up a playlist in YouTube so everybody can look at some past videos. And if you, any of the City Park stuff, so if you go through, let's see what tournaments have they been in. The East Coast tournament, I've got that on video. You can go to YouTube and go type in East Coast tournament playlist and see what pops up. Skyline Cup I might have. Festive Cup. I played in all those tournaments, but I'm not sure. I know the New York and the Christmas tournament I do not have recorded, but maybe the Festive Cup. For sure the Skyline Cup. I think I won the Skyline Cup. I did really well in it. It had some mixed holes in it. All right, there you go. Thanks for watching. Have a great tournament.